site. Emerging markets is a pretty hot topic now. Business does tend to play out differently in places like China and Brazil and Russia. And it's interesting to investigate these firms in those types of contexts. The institutional and political environment, I mentioned that earlier. What is the effect of cultural differences or cultural phenomena? For instance, we know that some, if we just look at a Hofstede typology, for example, some countries are more given to entrepreneurial behavior than others, just as a function of their basic cultural values and norms. And so that's potentially interesting to investigate, for example, as a moderating variable. More recently, there's been interest in the phenomenon of international opportunity pursuit, identification, pursuit, and exploitation. Opportunities come in all shapes and sizes, and they exist all around the world. And so how do young companies, for example, find new opportunities? How do they exploit them successfully, and so forth? Risk resiliency, risk assessment. Risk is an inherent characteristic of international business. And then there's also, I think it's been mentioned, growing interest in social entrepreneurship. And it's interesting to investigate how that plays out internationally. Excuse me, for example, we know that there's a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that try to undertake sort of social responsibility initiatives in countries around the world. And it's interesting to investigate how entrepreneurship principles might apply to their success, because we want such ventures to succeed. Here's a little chart that shows the Journal of International Business Studies, which I said is often regarded as kind of a leading journal in international business, does accept submissions from across all different types of business disciplines, whether it's strategic management or HR, or even accounting and finance, or marketing and supply chain management, or even economics and political science. And so there are all kinds of areas within which the phenomenon of international entrepreneurship can be investigated, and people have published in the area. So let's see. I guess I'm going to get to my handout here in just a few minutes. I wanted to just quickly summarize from the literature what are the known characteristics of born global firms, for example, of highly entrepreneurial companies in the international arena. I mentioned that they're more common in nations with smaller domestic markets. You see a lot more of these companies arising in some place like Belgium, for example, than you do, in the United States. Not limited to high technology industries. It has historically, many people have thought that this is really a phenomenon of the high tech sector, but really, you can see it across any industry, and that's been observed in some of the literature. I mentioned the three liabilities that these companies face. Their fundamental orientation is strongly international. Their founders are often so entrepreneurial that they tend to, as entrepreneurs are sometimes want to do, they tend to discount risk. And in this case, they discount the risks associated with international business. And that's interesting. I mean, that's a mindset that propels them forward to success, probably. Yeah. Internationalization provides young companies with various types of benefits. At minimum, sourcing inputs from around the world where you can obtain whatever advantages are available from different countries. Whether you're sourcing, parts or components or services to support your business. At a very minimum, we would expect a lot of young companies to be exploiting that today, but also the benefits of outward internationalization, pursuing markets internationally, and so forth. And the role played by international networks, relationships that, for example, in the effectuation perspective, effectuation theory argues for a big role for network connections that entrepreneurs leverage to achieve their goals, And we expect that to arise internationally as well. And it might be especially important in the international environment because the average American entrepreneur, for example, is probably not very knowledgeable about how to do business in China or Russia or some such place. And so they would tend to want to tap on their network relationships in order to succeed. Common capabilities and strategies associated with foreign globals. Oftentimes the founders have significant international experience, international vision, strong commitment to foreign markets, innovativeness, entrepreneurial orientation, international entrepreneurial orientation, skill in finding international opportunities in some manner, either proactively or sort of almost just as a natural outcome of the entrepreneur's fundamental orientation. Probably a strong emphasis on learning and knowledge development because there is a learning curve associated with doing international business, and entrepreneurs ideally need to get up that learning curve pretty fast. There's definitely a role for marketing activities, marketing strategy, and having a market orientation to some extent, being sensitive to conditions and needs and wants of customers in foreign markets. Flexibility, the ability to adapt, and that's one of the hallmarks, right, of young companies or small companies, that they are relatively more flexible, and perhaps that's a big advantage that they enjoy in internationalization insofar as they can adapt pretty quickly to conditions internationally. So anyway, here's this framework that I handed around, and I thought what I would do is ask you, and I think we're going to have, in the next session, we're going to do breakout groups, and so I thought maybe we'll just do this generally here and try to make this, in other words, we don't necessarily have, we won't do breakout groups here, but I wanted to ask you to look at this chart that I have put together, in which I have tried to capture, not all, but many, or maybe even most, maybe it's a lot to say most, but many of the constructs and concepts, variables that have been studied or could potentially be investigated in conjunction with international entrepreneurship. As I mentioned, context is particularly important in international business, and there are certain characteristics of the domestic market, for example, that potentially play a role in the success or failure of internationalizing SMEs, for instance. How strong is the level of institutional support for firm internationalization? And then also clearly the nature of foreign markets themselves, construed in various different ways, whether we're talking about culture or socioeconomic variables or things of that nature. And then down at the bottom here, the characteristics of the industry, but also of the firm itself, obviously, are potentially important. So I'm kind of interested in two major outcome dependent variables. The phenomenon of early internationalization itself, what gives rise to early internationalization, or what gives rise to successful internationalization of young companies. And then secondly, what gives rise to superior performance in international markets of young or entrepreneurial companies, particularly in light of the fact, as I said, that young companies often suffer serious resource constraints. And so numerous scholars have tried to investigate the role, for example, of various resources in the firm, or capabilities or dynamic capabilities or strategies that organizations and companies employ or potentially employ in order to support both early internationalization and especially superior international performance. And so maybe a good way to do this is to, and by the way, I have some more things here that I can talk about, but we'll see how it goes. I don't want to monopolize this conversation here too much. Major theoretical perspectives that have been been used in the investigation of international entrepreneurship. Again, I think it's important to devise explanations that support ultimately the advancement of theory or development of new theory to explain phenomena in a systematic, scholarly way. And these are some of the major ones that there's actually several pages here. Perspectives from international business, perspectives where the unit of analysis is more at the level of the firm, perspectives at kind of the ancillary level of the firm, things like agency theory and social capital theory, and then market level perspectives, what I would call market level perspectives, stakeholder theory, institutional theory, and so forth, cultural explanations like Hofstede. And then if you want, I can get into a few of these in more detail, but let's go back here and look at this chart. And maybe what we could do is, since we kind of have natural groups here already, maybe we can take 5 minutes or so and have you have discussion at your individual tables about this chart and about basically what I'm driving at is, let's see if we can come up with any interesting ideas or research questions that might be of interest to investigate in this area, in the area of international entrepreneurship. So why don't we do that using this chart as maybe a point of departure for discussion on this. And by no means do not confine yourself to this chart, because I know that you all bring other ideas and backgrounds potentially to the discussion. And then we'll come back around in 5 or so minutes, 10 minutes, maybe, and see what ideas we can produce from your discussions. And we'll go around table by table. Yes, sir.
I thought before that, yes, outside of the day, I have a question.
Okay.
You know, observed the past about 2 years or so. It's stupid. Very limited evidence.
Yeah.
But then an ideology that is now emerging,
Yes.
which is anti-globalization.
Yes.
People seem to be getting more and more national. You will find it in Europe, you will find it in the United States, you will find it in China, you will find it all over.
Yeah.
In that context, where do you think this will move?
Yeah. Well, my personal opinion on globalization versus deglobalization is that it's probably a natural phenomenon. Globalization is a large-scale global movement, which has been going on. It's been actually going on. You've seen even since before World War I, but it's been most pronounced in the last couple of decades, and it brings with it a lot of dynamism, a lot of maybe to use Schumpeter's term, a lot of creative destruction on a macro scale, and one would expect, therefore, that existing the establishment, so to speak, in different countries would, in some way or another, react against it. And I think that has probably always been the case. There's always been a certain amount of reaction against globalization. But for whatever reason, it's a little more pronounced now. I just think that's probably just a natural ebb and flow of a large-scale trend. And I would be very surprised if we did not return to some sort of normal globalization process such as we have experienced in the past. But by the same token, I'm sympathetic to it, because I do think that there is some value. I understand when people want to insist on their nation and their own view of the world as rooted in the country that they grew up in and so forth. And so I don't discount the deglobalization phenomenon to say, so what direction is this going to go? That raises maybe a related question is, what will be the nature of the firm, of the international firm, 10 years from now? You know, there's been a lot of recent writing about artificial intelligence, for example. And so that's going to be, technology is going to further drive the ability to operate internationally in a maximally efficient way. And so we might expect to see a lot more entrepreneurship as driven by technological developments, for example, in the coming years. And so this today, but will probably almost certainly be superseded in some manner by whatever new forms of organizations arise in the future. And it's an exciting time. Yeah?
And my question is sort of related to this question. What's immigrant entrepreneurship involved in religious?
And sure, Cam, this is not a complete map, and of course I ran out of space, as you can see. Okay, sure. Immigrant entrepreneurship certainly would be relevant here. But what is your idea? How do you think it would apply? One of the things, for example, okay, I'll give an idea. It's a fairly obvious idea. A lot of the companies, a lot of the people who found new companies are themselves immigrants. And so let's say you're living in Silicon Valley and you're from India. It's fairly straightforward to expect that you would, whatever software or something that you developed, that you would internationalize that back to your home country of India. So that's one area where immigrant entrepreneurship would indeed play a role. I was just up at San Jose State University a few weeks ago, and they were exactly working, a couple of scholars up there on this very notion. Yes?
It's almost like your conversation to his point and the other point is that we're at an inflection point, which is interesting, I think, to study, is that when companies are born global, they now are disrupting national global companies already. And so when a disruptor is interacting with a global company, it perceives as nationalism because generally the disruptors don't have to be from the same country anymore. So now we're seeing innovation not happening locale derivative, but global innovation. So it's almost like instead of studying why the companies are global, is what is the impact of the start to where it is approached in terms of its entry to the market. Because maybe it's global entry market as opposed to, and that's the disruptive, which is why people go, well, it's become nationalistic, right? So there's this really interesting change because in my, I'll talk about it later, but in my corporate lifetime, when we would look at where countries were going to go launch something, it was for the local market, not attacking a global at-once market. It was always locations, country specific. Which are very different dynamics.
So one would expect these globalization disruptions to originate at more of a micro level, and these types of organizations, for example,
The reaction is more global, national level.
Yeah. That's what it has. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah. So if we don't have any more preliminary questions, shall we take a look at this and see if you can come up with maybe 2 or 3 great research ideas that we should be investigating in the area of international entrepreneurship?
Orientation. Yes.
My research is that it didn't get so far. My entire time right now. Right. My research did not get into the afterwards and I reported it as
We only have about 10 minutes left, so maybe we should see if any of you have developed any ideas from your discussion. Well, these you have, so let's talk to these folks right here. So let's.
Oh, you want me to share that?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. In our group, we have very interesting discussion, and this is what we seem to be in agreement, the three of us. You can correct me if you want to change. What we said is, we are living in a world in which there is no longer anything called local. All right. Now, for example, in international business, you have David Ricardo's theory, and you have Adam Smith theory, Paul Krugman, and all these people. You have various theories. Do you have a product life cycle at all in today's world? Do you have an introduction in the domestic market, and then growth, and then maturity, and then introducing a new work? No, because everything is simultaneous. If you have an iPhone that's being released in the United States, it is released in probably Beijing on the same day, in New Delhi on the same day, and probably in London on the same day. Now you are living in a world where everything is global, and I was just sharing with them in India particularly. For example, you walk into a supermarket, all right? You want to buy apple. Now there was a time, probably till about 5 years ago, you could get Indian apple. Today the question is, do you want apple from Washington or New York? Or do you want it from New Zealand or Australia? That's a question. Now you don't get Indian apples in Indian stores, all right? You don't get Indian oranges. They will say, I'll get you from New Zealand. So movies, for example, everything is simultaneous release. In that context, therefore, don't you think that born global will become the new standard?
I think so.
And if it becomes like that, don't you think, therefore, the research on international entrepreneurship should only focus on what is the likely scenario in the next about, let's say, 5 years? 5 years from now, 3 years from now, what is the likely scenario? And that should be the only area of focus. And this is what we are thinking.
How are these firms, how will they evolve over the course of 5 years or 10 years?
So the entire research, or most of the research, should focus on that question, because I think we need to question ourselves, not about the past, but think about the future and say the world is going to be entirely different in most unpredictable ways than what we are used to, and therefore there should be plenty of research. We should not talk about 1980s and 1990s and 2000. We should be talking about 2020, 2040, 2060, and see what should be the scenario. That's what we'll discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very, very interesting. Yeah, we actually, Gustavo and I had a conversation about that a little bit earlier. How these companies evolve over time in of itself is an interesting question. And with technology, with the changes that we're seeing, it's almost hard to imagine how it's going to play out. I would still imagine that there's still going to be a good many companies that will prefer to operate largely locally, just because that tends to be human nature. But yeah.
Yeah, I think with the changes in the technology, especially with crowdfunding, we're getting to know which markets have a demand for your product without actually developing the product. And once the product, the funding campaign becomes successful, you get contacted by all the distributors, manufacturers from across the world wanting to partner with you.
Yeah.
So without actually having to identify opportunities or have the knowledge of manufacturers or distributors, you are able to now get contact from all the different sources and figure out, okay, now my product has high demand in Poland, for example, so I'm going to enter the Polish market. And then I get contacted by a Korean manufacturer and a distributor in Australia. So I can enter this market. So without actually developing the product, you're able to quickly identify. That's an interesting area of research, especially when you look at crowdfunding and international
The
entrepreneurship.
emergence of global value chains that that develop as easily as today a local or state-based value chain will develop, just because operating internationally will be so effortless.
Absolutely, and you don't even have to take the risk of entering the market, because with crowdfunding you get to know before you actually manufacture the product. So you don't even have a product, but you know there's a demand for your product.
So there's an interesting research question. What will be the nature of the over here? I think the research question is, what will be the nature of the firm 5 to 10 years from now in this context of globalization and international entrepreneurship? And then your point is how will this play out through the moderating effect of various technologies, for example, that facilitate instant globalization, interacting with partners, potential partners you may not even know where they're located in the world. In that sense, the notion of international becomes almost irrelevant. And I think you were alluding to that too. Who else would like to make a comment? Yes. Or we have a research question for the group.
So I'll start with a comment and then follow with a research question. Yeah. So my younger brother is based in Germany. He's a graphic designer, and he works for a company full time. I think 20% of his income comes from doing services online, as an like Upwork or different platforms. I think this week he's working for a company in Silicon Valley. Next week, a company in UK. And if this is available for an individual, why are we still questioning why do startups go to internationalization, especially if their business, like the nature of the business is like high tech or like programming? It's not like manufacturing. I need to manage supply chain or manufacturing facilities. I think the simple answer is because he can. So this wasn't something that is available 20 years ago. Now the technology has enabled this, and I think many of the theories of organizations we study are based on like some assumptions that are being changing now, like manufacturing, the need for locality. I remember like Thomson, 1967, who mentioned like organization in action, and he had made many propositions about the need for locality. If two business units are like related or highly overlapping, they need to be adjacent to each other. This doesn't make much sense to me, because many businesses now have like support teams in India or across the globe. So there might be like the change in the dynamics in the environment, making some like historical assumptions kind of obsolete now. So for me, the question doesn't make sense, because like as a startup, if I can do it, I will do it. If I can go to the moon, I will go to the moon. So
not only are we beyond the traditional view of firm internationalization as a kind of a gradual, incremental process where you're confronted with all types of risk and uncertainty, but we're actually moving into an area where we may be, in the not too distant future, beyond the notion of international entrepreneurship itself, as the world is so basically organizations, individuals, entrepreneurs just naturally view the entire world, automatically view the entire world as their marketplace, whether it's on the upstream or the downstream side of their value chains.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So the research question I was thinking, so legitimacy. So how, if I'm a startup in Egypt, India, anywhere in the world, and I'm trying to sell services to United States. Okay, so how do I gain legitimacy? How do I overcome the question of like how legitimate you are? So this might be an interesting session question for me.
Maybe I don't have a slide. Very exciting. I put some things out here. There's a whole literature on legitimacy and how does the firm establish legitimacy in foreign companies. And so that's a whole stream of theoretical research that can be used to support research in this area. How are we doing on time?
I think we just about.
Okay.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Gary for. So I asked TPE to join us here for a special presentation for Gary.
All right, thank you so much, Gary, for that wonderful presentation. On behalf of the Lavin Center, we'd like to present this gift to you. Thank you.
So are you ready to go to work now? We're going to give you a 15-minute break, and when you come back, get ready for a wild and woolly afternoon. Thomas Schutz is going to be leaving shortly to go pick up his son, and he's going to be here for just a little while longer. And as he listened to the presenters this morning talk about the need for assessment and gathering metrics and so forth, he mentioned to me that the Ideator platform is ideally capturing those kind of metrics. So during the break, if you have a chance, stop over and say hi to Thomas and the folks at Ideator. And we'll begin at 2:15 and get ready. All right.
It'll be real quick. Let's go right out here.
I'll fix that.
Michael, we may ask you to leave a table. We need.
I'm switching making making sure we're involved in social entrepreneurship. And so, anyway, I'm familiar with Sharp, but I wasn't familiar with what the lab you're at. I'm familiar with just shifting research experience. Not entrepreneurship at all.
Okay, are you teaching it or are you doing more research?
Both.
Okay.
I got to use creative.
So you had, okay.